At the end of Baldur's Gate 3's prologue, there's a fight that you're supposed to run from. The enemy is far above your level and can one-shot you with almost every attack. But come on, do you really think I'm gonna miss out on that juicy experience and loot? Here's 5 different ways to clear the fight that range from extremely cheesy to almost fair. To give it an appropriate name to each strategies, I'm going to do a Google search and use whatever comes up as the first result. What cheese has the most explosive flavor? Sharp cheddar. I love sharp cheddar. I don't know if I'd call it explosive, but here we go. We are going to blow this guy all the way to the 9th layer of hell. Okay, not really because he's resistant to fire, but it's still enough to get the job done. This one's actually pretty easy. Throughout the ship, you can find these nautiloid tanks that explode when exposed to fire. All we've got to do is make a couple nice stacks of these and move them on over to the boss room. I tried a couple different things. The first was just stacking everything on the boss and blowing it up immediately when the fight begins. This wasn't ideal. He didn't really take much damage, so I took the stack down and surrounded him instead. I threw a void bulb to pull the mind flayer away from the explosion, then moved a candle onto the liquid to ignite it, and this worked really well. Commander Zulk took a lot of damage, all his troops were heavily damaged or dead, and the mind flayer was barely hit. We were able to finish Commander Zulk off with the mind flayer still alive, and it rudely turned on us, so we killed it too for even more experience. I was actually able to go fully to level 2 before even fighting the 2 Cambions. The last thing I did was lure the Cambions all the way over to Commander Zulk and blow them all up at the same time, which also worked great. I didn't really have much trouble finishing off the weakened enemies after that. Next up, we've got the cheese with the most commanding flavor. And I don't really feel like clicking on the article. It says goat cheese in the description, so let's go with that. The goat cheese strategy. This one is interesting because in truth, there's not anything inherently cheesy about it. I'm just playing the game as intended, mostly. The biggest thing that makes Commander Zulk dangerous is his overpowered sword, which is why I'm playing Cleric. I'm going to use the command spell to force him to drop his weapon on the ground. Without the sword, he'll be dealing very mediocre damage, and the mind flayer will be able to win the fight. The cheesy part is when I save scum the game as many times as it takes to get the command to work on my first try. In case you don't know, save scumming is when you save the game right before taking an action that has a chance to fail. Then you reload the save over and over until you get what you want. So if I try to use command and he succeeds on his saving throw, I'll just reload the game and do it again until he fails. Then I'll walk on over and scoop that sword up, even though it's not necessary because he doesn't even try to pick it up. With a few healing spells and buffs sent the mind flayer's way, I can keep it alive long enough to clear out the entire fight. Also, I command you to hit the like button on this video. With advantage? I should have save scummed that roll. I don't know what to type into Google for this one, so let's just do cheese with a hit and run flavor. Nailed it. Rogue River Blue. Is that a cheese? People also ask about Limburger. We're going with Limburger, the Limburger strategy. I looted a few things in the first 2 rooms before sending my familiar ahead to skip me to the final fight with no companions. I blocked the walkways with these chests, but the demons can jump, so that isn't enough to protect me. I pulled Commander Zulk to the middle of the room and let him blow up most of his allies. And I finished off a few more before I started setting up. I threw grease onto the staircase and started throwing acid bombs around to cover the floor. I thought for this fight I would run away from enemies the whole time and try to lead them through the acid and take shots when I could. But instead, they just decided they didn't want to move at all. To get even more acid, I shot the brine bulbs hanging from the ceiling until I had covered the floor pretty thoroughly with acid. And I got lucky and all 3 enemies ended up in a little clump together and they refused to move no matter what. So I just stood up here and shot them over and over again until they were dead. Okay, let's find the cheese with the sneakiest flavor. The cottage cheese salad. The cottage cheese salad! The stealth in Baldur's Gate 3 is completely broken, and I think there will be some fixes on full release, I hope. But for this video, we're going to use the cottage cheese salad surprise to take down Commander Zulk and his reinforcements. For the best results, high ground is ideal, so you have a slightly higher chance to hit. And all we have to do is use the hide bonus action ability to go into stealth. The enemies don't know where we are and don't even try to find us. This is actually the main thing I'd like to see fixed. I think the enemies should search relentlessly for you if you're in combat. And it would be cool if they could use an action for like maybe a perception check or an investigation check to see if they can pick up your trail and start heading in your direction. But for now, that doesn't matter because I can just take a shot with my action, then use my bonus action to hide. I don't even need to move. The enemies are taking arrow after arrow to the face and have no idea why.
Man, I showed up to work today feeling good, but now I have a huge headache and an arrow stuck in my eye. I hate Mondays.
For this next one, I googled the cheese with the strongest, cheesiest flavor. So here we go with Gorgonzola. For this one, I've got a full party, which includes Tav, Lae'zel, Shadowheart, and us. I'm going to separate us from the group and send the rest of the party in to battle the enemies. After fearlessly fighting my way through the weaker enemies, I found myself in an unwinnable fight against a superior opponent. It seemed nothing could turn the tide of this fight. Our heroes have fallen, and no bard will ever immortalize our stories in song. Unless I perform the song mid-battle. It's the only way. A bard down on his luck, his lute one final pluck, in Avernus forever stuck. The battle raged, a hero fell. It looked like she would die in hell. Silent screams, a deadly tune. The final blow delivered soon. The final bell. The bard said no to destiny. He would go down in history. Lute in hand, he played a chord so sweet his music pleased the Lord. The darkest night, pierced by light. Powerful chord rips limb from limb. A spark of hope shines through the grim. Each time slain, he'd rise anew. With every death, their power grew. Can't let them win. Once was strong, now trembling fear. Lash out, but flesh has dulled your spear. Call out, Lae'zel, your words inspire. Avernus quakes beneath her fire. Victory draws near. Thunder cracks, space-time collapse. When time resumes, see only scraps. Single cambion doth remain. Between pained breaths, asks hero's name. The bard leans near. Last words the demon hears.
Quiet! Rank malodorous pustule back to the anus that spat you out.
Anus. Anyways, what actually happened is us, the Intellect Devourer, was just spamming the Restoration Tank the whole fight. Too bad the Bard's convinced he's the Lord's Chosen, his ego took the wheel, and crashed the whole damn ship.